Hey everybody, welcome to the show. For me to be, you got Shiva. I'm a senior strategist over at Spiro, and I'm super excited to be talking to Sina. He's someone that I've been talking to quite a bit through LinkedIn. I really love the conversations that we've had, specifically around some of the testing things that we've been going through. I really like talking to him. So I figured he was a natural guest to have on the show. Sina, if you can maybe give me a quick primer on yourself, tell me about why I should trust you, why I should talk to you as a person for experimentation, specifically around growing experimentation programs.
Well, why you should trust me is because I'm not coming to you with any sort of answers. There's no silver plate or silver bullet that I'm coming to you with. The lens that the reason why you know the success that we've had and the clients that we work with have achieved success is because we come in with this curiosity, this beginner's mindset. Every business, every industry, every product is unique, and our job is to figure out the intricacies. So the trust comes from the process and the work that we're committed to. And I'm not coming to you as an expert in anything specific. And like I said, I don't have silver bullet answers. It's just you trust our process, you understand how experimentation works, then, what we can bring to the table is valuable.
Yeah. I like that. You're basically saying, like, we're not going to guarantee anything, but we're going to follow a process that will guarantee positive results. But we're not going to give you a test that's guaranteed to lift revenue by X. Basically.
Exactly. And that's like a big part of what experimentation is. It's about helping to reduce uncertainty, and foster these opportunities that you're not even aware of. Like if I come to you with perfect answers, I'm not really there's like a local maximum that I'm going to reach because that's the level of my knowledge, right? But when you're open to really what it can bring, and then there's there's no limit to the innovation.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, like, I'm dumb sometimes. That's why I test things. I don't know everything.
There you
Well,
go.
that's the reason why we experiment, right? That's it's probably not the most trustworthy answer, but
No, it's probably
whatever.
not. We could A/B test the phrasing around that for sure.
So cool. You talked a little bit about process, and that's something I want to dig a little bit deeper into. Specifically, I think there's sometimes a battle in process versus results. And I'll say this with a little bit of context. So I think in a perfect world, you have unlimited resourcing in terms of maybe designers, UX, project managers. You have unlimited bandwidth to focus on program management and now, test analysis, whatever that may be. And you could maybe when you come to a new company, you can immediately focus on the process, spend 3, 4 months locking that process down, testing it out, getting those resources. I think that's kind of perfect world thinking. The reality from my personal experience is someone hires an experimentation person and they almost immediately have to be productive. They're almost immediately behind the 8 ball because it's like, we hired an experimentation person.
Yeah.
All right, great. Let's run some experiments. Let's learn. Let's do X, Y, and Z. And it's
Yeah.
like, instead of having the time to really focus on the process and figure out what that is, you're immediately tied to results.
Hmm.
And I think thinking about it like, all right, you have one test, loses. Well, okay, it's fine. That's one test. The next test loses. Okay, that's okay. No biggie. You use 7 tests in a row, maybe. And when I'm defining losing, I mean like not generating revenue.
Right.
Then at some point, executives and other people, stakeholders, maybe even your hire manager, may like, why did I hire an experimentation person if every test we're running is losing? So I think there's a little bit of like process establishment
Hmm.
versus getting those quick results.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that balance in your mind.
There's a number of things I want to touch on here. One is that when companies hire an experimentation person or a lead CRO manager, whatever it is, to come, they're looking for solutions. They're looking for answers. They're looking for, hey, you must know the answers to our problems. The reality is, and this is something I think one of your questions was, what are you on a soapbox on? And this is something I'm definitely on a soapbox on is companies don't even understand the problems. They don't have a truly deep understanding of what are they trying to solve before trying to solve it. They have this superficial KPI or goal, or really, really high level goal, that revenue. We want to increase revenue. We want to increase conversion rates. We want to increase retention, but we don't understand what actually drives revenue or drives retention or conversion rates. And we don't understand the intricacies. So when you're coming into hiring a CRO person and establishing your process, you don't really understand the resources and the tools and that you need in order to accomplish your goal, because you don't have a clear idea of what your actual goal is, right? You have a very superficial understanding of what's important. Yeah. So, I mean, I see that as a really big success factor for companies, is digging into the problems that they're trying to solve, and really understanding them. And part of that is, and again, this is another area that I'm really passionate about, is understanding, well, what do we need to know, and what information do we not have, and where do we need to invest in our company in terms of data, in terms of research, in order to understand those problems better. Companies come into experimentation with a lot of debt in terms of technology, in terms of data, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of process, in terms of research, and they're never going to get a truly ahead of the problem and find the right solutions, because they're not taking the time to invest in the infrastructure that needs to be in place. So I think that's, again, those are two kind of separate issues, but I see that as impacting process.
Let me reframe what you said, because I think it's almost like people are hiring experimentation people for the wrong reasons. That potentially they're hiring someone as an experimentation person to potentially maybe validate what they're kind of already doing versus kind of proactive exploration of the features. But like, it almost, at times, it can be like, if you're hiring an experimentation person just to kind of validate what you're doing, rather than hire an experimentation person as kind of an arm or a leg or a spoke in the overall hub of like research,
Right.
then that's where you're kind of limiting the program growth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I see this as like, so I mean, realistically, the experimentation is just, in my opinion, another tool for data. It's just another source of data. It's to validate the insights that are coming, or the analysis. And you have these kinds of like fake data driven companies where, you know, they're essentially, and the data is this amazing thing where you can actually bend it and massage it into whatever you want, right? You can make data justify anything you want, and it can help. And these fake data driven companies are using data to kind of not actually find truth, but just to validate their decisions, to justify, direction. They're never questioning the process that the data was acquired. They're never questioning the integrity of the data as it's being analyzed and manipulated. And a lot of the analysis that's being done, again, the segmentation, the manipulation, is for this storytelling. It's to make them look good, to save face. And it's done completely for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say there's probably a lot of tiers, but there's like 3 tiers of data, and their respective companies kind of come to mind as like data, like data collection, like maybe that's root level, like you just collect data, you just have it. And there's data driven, which is like data kind of drives the decision making, but like you mentioned, sometimes the data is manipulated to validate decisions, or sometimes you kind of just like if the data doesn't validate the decision, you like look for other data to support your decision making, which is like loosely data driven, but like not really. But to me, there's like this third tier of like data obsessed, which is you are not only collecting data, you're not only driving decision making through data, you are
Right.
proactively seeking ways to validate and push forward the business using the data. And
Right.
I think that third tier is like if you go into a data obsessed company, then
Right.
experimentation is absolutely at the core of that.
Mhm.
Versus data driven to me sometimes can just feel like a buzzword of people who are like, yeah, are you data driven? Yeah, we have Google Analytics. Like,
Right. Oh yeah.
get it
Yeah. Yeah.
done.
You have the completely opinion hippo driven organization. Then you have like the okay, we're collecting some data, but we don't really know how to use it. So we're data informed. We
Yeah.
understand it,
Yeah.
right? And then you have like the like you said, kind of like the data more data driven, and that like that has so many facets to it. It's not only how you collect it, it's also again how you integrate it with um throughout and connect the dots, right? So you could be collecting a bunch of data in a whole bunch of different tools, but if you're not integrating it and understanding how they connect and build on each other, there's like a halo effect to data, right? You're stacking different insights, but if you don't have that sort of prowess, and that comes from in the thing, here's the other thing I'll say. Your CRO manager is not responsible for that. That is
Okay.
not their job. Their job is to use that data to maybe ask questions
Mhm.
but their job is not to manipulate that data. You need a data scientist, you need a data engineer to make sure that sort of, structure is in place. Your ETL, whatever you're using is in place for that, again, infrastructure to produce the sort of, ability to for your data scientists to even manipulate it. But most of these companies are just, and then I'll add another layer to this is um really it's kind of this knowledge sharing, right? Because different how does data from the website experience impact customer service or sales or the PPC team or really looking at the customer buying journey? What are the different data sets that we need, and how is that communicated? There's so many levels of maturity to this. And most businesses, where I think in the process, we're talking about experimentation program growth. I think the area where companies need to invest the most, and it sucks because it's expensive and it's boring and it's not fun and it doesn't drive results initially, but it's the foundation to experimentation and to everything that you're going to be doing. And that is that initial understanding of what is the problems that we're going to solve, how do we set up our data infrastructure to gather the information that we need and the insights that are most important to us in order to solve that problem. And that's step one in my opinion.
Yeah. And that brings up an interesting point about kind of what goes into an experiment, because I think there's oftentimes like a misnomer about experimentation. Like we just talked about, like you hire an experimentation person. And I think sometimes the expectation is I've hired an experimentation person, therefore I will now have experiments run. And like it's in theory, like, yeah, experimentation person, experiments, boom, I'm done.
Right.
But like the reality obviously is that, you need dedicated devs, or you need dedicated resourcing of devs. You're going to need designers. You're going to need analysts, or the
Mhm.
CRO person could maybe be an analyst, but like
Yeah.
you're going to need dedicated time, dedicated things that support the
People. Yeah.
experimentation function,
Mhm.
right? Well,
Yeah.
people, resources, tools, you're going to need a lot.
Yeah.
On that note, I think that's where sometimes there is that misnomer is probably not the right word, but like there is that misalignment about like I hire an experimentation person, now run experiments. And sometimes that could be detrimental of expectation setting to growing an experimentation
Totally.
program, right?
Totally.
They hire someone and they think immediately we're going to get all the insights, we're going to get all the wins. And it's like you just hired one
Yeah.
person, you didn't staff them properly.
No.
And there's obviously that whole layer of like, people and skills that you need to support that experimentation function.
Yeah.
But What
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about that. What do you think about?
Oh man. I mean, it's crazy when I hear like companies just talk about like, hey, we have a CRO person without any understanding of the structure and the support that needs to go around this person. Like it's like having a quarterback, but no, linebackers, but like who cares?
Yeah.
You're gonna get demolished, right?
Right.
And it like CRO, experimentation, growth, whatever you want to call it. I hate all of the terms because it just means just doing things better, using a scientific process to just make things better, right? That's really what it all is at its core. But it's a multidisciplinary team sport, and that's what you need to understand. Like again, you might not need like a full-time designer for things. It really depends again on your objectives. Like, what are you trying to really understand and optimize for? What are the problems that you're trying to solve? Maybe a designer isn't even relevant right now in your team because the problem that you're trying to solve is more around messaging or more around adjusting the buying journey or whatever it is. And again, without that clear understanding of the problem, again, a really deep understanding of that problem, then you're not going to be able to support your quarterback, your lead person in their role. Another thing I'll add is it's it's extremely toxic and dangerous to hire a person in this role with the expectation that they're here to help you increase your conversions and get you results. Because in that lens, that person will never feel comfortable to come to you with their failures. And because failures, I mean, Shiva, you know this, man, like failures have incredible potential for learning. And not only to limit ideas and creativity and innovation, because I'm only going to go for those easy, very comfortable tests. I'm not gonna drive any sort of transformative, really big ideas because I'm afraid to swing for the home runs because if I fail, I'm screwed. So not only does it limit that, but it also puts the CRO manager in a position where they're incentivized to lie. they're incentivized to hide the problems that their experiment might be causing. Might not look, oh well, look, the KPI that you're looking at, we increased it, that's fantastic, but you're not looking at the full picture. Maybe, yeah, you increased short-term conversion rates and whatever, but maybe you lowered AOV or lifetime value, or your NPS score went down because of the thing that you just did. And it just breeds this culture of like toxic, success, and forces people to just really, cherry pick and be dishonest and just show what they want to show. So, yeah.
I'll say, like, I think in principle, like, I think the problem with that is you don't have accountability. I guess you have, if that scenario that you described where a CRO person's tasked with like improving conversion rates and that's their KPI for success for the organization,
Right.
like they have maybe the accountability, but they don't necessarily have that responsibility and the influence to actually do it. Like if they're accountable for improving conversion rate, but then like, the brand manager's like, we're cool with playing the CLTV long-term play, and we're going to do all of these other things. And it's okay if we take a temporary decrease to CVR and other metrics so that we can do that long-term play, but you're accountable for CVR. Then you're again, that's more of like an organizational thing that I've seen often of like, there's maybe like you have 4 silos of maybe like project managers, and then like project manager 1 is tasked with KPI X. And then project manager 2 is tasked with KPI Y. And like, it's not a holistic KPI and then it's delegated down. It's like you improve X and you improve Y. And sometimes improving X will decrease Y. And it's
Right.
like, it's isolated. So they don't have to be talking together. They have to go back to our previous point about like business metrics and having, I think one of the struggles about scaling an experimentation program is a business that's not unified together in determining that business plan and provisioning those metrics and that accountability properly. It's a little bit more like Reese discussions talking about like this person is accountable for X, this person's accountable for Y, this person influences X and Y. Talking about those kind of um, those frameworks for accountability for specific functions. Um, yeah, and I think that kind of keeps on. I think that theme I just keep on saying it's just like experimentation is just like not well understood, so people just assume it's like this silver bullet of like I don't know, so let's just bring an experimentation person. And to be fair, like sometimes experimentation can be a solution, but like you've been saying, sometimes they're solving the wrong. Maybe the problems aren't the right, even though the solution's correct.
I remember this. Forgot, it was like a LinkedIn post. I don't know who posted it, but it was about Airbnb, and the problem that they were solving was something around increasing bookings or number of booking days. And
Yep.
there was a number of different ways to break that down, and evaluation criteria. What are the KPIs? And it actually blew my mind when you think about it that way, that, you can increase that metrics. So I think they mentioned like 2 or 3 different ways of doing it based on different KPIs, and you're optimizing for different KPIs that would end with this technically with the same results, right? And what's important to understand is holistically is, again, that your end goal is revenue conversion rates, but what are the levers that you're willing to pull in order to accomplish that, right? And again, that I think just keep going back to the beginning is like, it's understanding at the root core of the problem that you're trying to solve. And that clarity really does need to come from, an organization level. It's not up to the CRO person to say, hey, well, from a business, our strategic business objectives are like this. That needs to come from, it's a team discussion of, what are we trying to do here with experimentation?
Yeah. So the last question I have for you, Sina, kind of reflecting back on your experience growing experimentation programs, what would be your biggest lesson learned of something that you're like, I wish I knew this earlier, but we always test to learn, right? And sometimes you have to fail to ultimately succeed. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in kind of growing experimentation program maturity?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you the biggest lesson that I've learned, and this is where, as an agency, we've invested heavily into the past few years, is because, okay, candidly, when you start off with CRO, and that it's really easy to get those kind of low hanging fruit wins for your clients, right? And you can run experiments that, just based on heuristics and, experience and some light research and maybe a little bit of data, that will get them results and get them wins. But you're going to hit a wall, a ceiling really, 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 really fast. So the thing that I've realized, and again, from an agency perspective, where we're investing heavily into, is on the customer research and the business analytics side. Like, if you are not investing in those 2 areas before getting into actually developing your experimentation program, hiring your copywriter, hiring your CRO manager, hiring your designer, for whatever, project manager, whoever it is, developers, it doesn't matter. You are never, ever, ever going to maximize the value of that team if you don't have the research and the business analytics side of those pillars, that foundation in place. So again, it's really easy to get started with experimentation, and it's a lot of fun, and it feels like, hey, we're making motion, we're movement, right? And we might even get some results. But the reality is, actually, if you first invest in a CRO manager, a designer, developer, copywriter, that overhead is going to reach its full potential really, really, really fast. And the cost of your program, running that program, is going to just balloon, because And the ROI is going to become negative because you don't have the foundation for the research and the business analytics side, because that's what's going to drive all of those resources to reach the full potential. So that's the biggest thing I would say in terms of experimentation programs is invest in the things that actually matter. Invest in your data, invest in the research team, because that's what's going to drive everything else.
Yeah. I'll say this. I like what you talked about, like reaching a limit when you just do low hanging fruit testing that like are more like broken than you're just fixing with experimentation
Right.
and then testing it. But to your point, sometimes you'll reach a limit. And the analogy that I would think of is like, if you go to the gym and all you do is a single motion, like bicep curl every day for a year, you'll probably have decent biceps, but if you don't change the weight, if you don't try some different movements, if you don't work on your legs, you're gonna be you're you're gonna just look weird with like strong biceps, but not be a holistic better person. Versus like you need to try different exercises, which is like different research. You
Right.
need to keep on exploring, trying these different things.
Totally.
Yeah.
And and that gets back to the concept of local maximum, right? So you have like a landing page. There's only so much you can do with this freaking landing page. There's only so many headlines and like page variations that will actually make a difference. What experimentation and again, the customer research and the business analytics side does is that it opens your eyes to opportunities that you would have never seen before. Like some of the things that we've done with our clients is completely change their messaging and branding, help them introduce new product lines and product categories to their business, enter new markets. These are things that you don't expect from experimentation. And candidly, you shouldn't. They don't come from experimentation. They're supported by experimentation, but they come from the analytics and the customer research. Identifying that, hey, my messaging isn't resonating with these segments, or hey, I can introduce new product line, doesn't come from A/B testing a landing page. Really, it comes from that foundation of research and analytics that, again, most businesses are just not investing in.
Yep. It's proactive feature exploration and versus just feature validation. It's important.
Yeah.
Cool, man. All right. Well, want to give you a couple seconds to plug your stuff.
My name's Sina Fak. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I post sometimes, not all the time. Uh, I run a CRO agency. I would call us, I hate the word CRO, but we do business analytics, we do customer research, and we do experimentation. Those are three things that we do. It's called Conversion Advocates. And we love working with businesses. And yeah, so hit me up.